Welcome to East Tennessee Pinball. Today I'm working on this alien poker. It came in, wasn't booting reliably. That was just a battery that was bad. The other issue is none of the solenoids were working, none of them. So I started off, I just checked, uh, pulled up the playfield, measured voltage on any of the coils, and didn't have voltage to the coils. Uh, I did have voltage. I got the power supply out here on the bench. I did have power supply on or voltage on the power supply. So, you immediately think connection or header pin or something. Turns out it was a burnt header pin. So it's these connections on this side. And you see this set of header pins. They're pretty toasty. So I'm going to swap this set of header pins out. And somebody's got, they got this soldered onto that pin there. Yeah, so I may take that off and put it back through the connector. I don't know. Anyway, to start with, I'm going to take out this header pin. I'm also going to repin the corresponding connector. It's the IDC, so I'll have to get a new connector housing and repin what looks like five wires. Not too bad. So I'm going to put y'all on the stand. We'll get to it. Crank my iron up a little bit hotter. 375C, just because this got these huge traces and lots of solder, and it's just really sucking the heat out of my iron. It's also not much to burn up. I mean, there's the traces, but these old boards are pretty tough. This is what I was talking about the other day on the Rotten Dog. The Rotten Dog version of this would be much harder to work with and much more fragile too. See where I'm at here. Oh, it's still pretty hot. I got several of them free. bunch of them actually. Yeah, there we go. All right, and the top one is the plug. I need to clean those up just a little bit more so I get the new pins in there. Oh shoot. I've already cut this for another application or something, but it's, yeah, that's not gonna work. That one's already been cut off. I just pulled it on my bin, it was the right number of them, but it's not gonna work. So we need that many. Make sure it's all the way in, and it is. And we'll just resolder it. All right, that's done. So this, we're gonna have to, so that goes to the, would be the male side of that Molex connector. I think I've got some of those. Let me dig around, see what I've got. So I think I found it here. It's a 0.093. So I'll have to put this onto the connector in the machine. And they've got an aftermarket little fuse holder. All these system 3 through 11, I guess, they need a couple of extra fuses added to the game. And this whoever worked on this one bought an aftermarket little package to do that. And this plugs into that. I'll show you here in a second. But while I'm in here, I guess I'll take this, desolder this right now. I got it in front of that soldering iron. Just about fuse those together. Yeah, this board's had some tough times, I'd say, but it's probably fine. All right, so, oh, one last thing. I've got to snip this top one off. Make it look like the other one. There we go. And while I'm sitting here, I'm gonna grab, so that's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. A 9-pin connector. That looks like it right there. And we need a plug. Go ahead and plug it in. So, there we go. Now we're done here at the bench. We can go over to the game and finish this up. So it's always interesting to me the old story these games tell, and this one's telling me that that wire got yanked out of there and somebody didn't have that fitting, so they just soldered on the back of the board, which, you know, it's easy to complain about it, but on the other hand, this thing was probably making quarters somewhere, or it's in somebody's house and they didn't have it. But this tool to get it out of there, and even with the tool, sometimes they're hard to get out. But if you don't have one of these tools, they're all but impossible. This is a double-ended. It's got a small one. It's like the 0.08, the 0.09. But there's little wings in there you got to fold down got it started. There we go. On the floor. That's perfect. So this is this aftermarket board. Somebody's selling these things. They're pretty nice actually. So they've got the 2 fuses. So those fuses are actually, they got the rectifiers right behind, mounted behind them. So I don't know if these boards come with the rectifiers in them, but normally those rectifiers would be mounted. You see where they were right there. So what I normally do is just take the AC from each of these, run it to a fuse and put it right here, then run it back. This one's a little bit more advanced. It's got a couple of capacitors on there. Not completely necessary, but I'm sure they're probably pretty nice. But anyway, this is doing the job to protect your game from, well, in this case, these rectifiers, what we're normally here on your games, they're probably sitting here. If these things short out, they're not fuse protected, and so they need to be either with something like this, or just run the AC over here, fuse it, and then go back to it, or take the AC from this to a fuse and then back over there to it. But so right now, this is that wire that I pulled out of that board, and this harness here, this thing here plugs in just like that. And I've got to take this and then stick it in back into that. I got to take that and put it into that fitting there. So I'm going to cut this off, maybe shorten that wire just a little bit, make it about the same length as the others, and put that terminal on there. All right, so I got my wire here, my wire cutters or strippers. Just trim off a little bit. Actually, these have a little bit longer than normal. Trim a little bit more off. There we go. That was still a little excessive, but it's all right. Got to pre-bend these to get them fit into my. There we go. That's good. That looks like a good crimp. All right, let's see if we can feed it in there. Yep, it snapped right in. We'll see if it works here in a second. So I've shown you these before. I'll show you again. I like to use these Trifricons on these, especially the things that are delivering a little bit of power. The GI in particular, but even the solenoids too. So they've got, I don't know if you see how well you see that. They've got 3 sides to them. The pin comes in through the bottom, and there's like these 2 little wings. There, you're looking like at the pin coming in. I don't know if you can't really see that very well. But anyway, get the Trifricon pins. They give you 3 surfaces to transmit electricity instead of just one. Wire cutters. That label's going to have to go. All right, so I got that thing pinned. It was in fast motion for you probably.
I don't know if you saw, but one of them I crimped it, and it came right off because I didn't have the wire inserted far enough. So you're kind of doing it by feel. You kind of feel when the insulation comes to the first one, then you kind of feel it slip in a little bit. And so always inspect that you've got it. And I'm gonna just real quick, especially when you got them cut like this, just hold it up here and make sure that everything's kosher, and it is. Ah, jeez, I put the plug in the wrong hole. Right, put the connector upside down. It doesn't really matter because these don't have a sleeve. I'm just gonna pull this out and stick it in the top. There we go. I say it doesn't matter because there's no little clip on those header pins. We've got it all plugged in. I think I'll plug the game in, turn it on, and see if we've got solenoids.
All right, so we'll boot it up. Oh, fired everything. I think it fired all the solenoids. I see the display. I still don't have a battery in there yet, so that's just given the game number. But if I turn it off and turn it on again, there. So now we're in attract mode. Let's give it some credits here. Sounds a lot like my firepower. I've got it on a stand, so there's no, or a cart, there's no tilt part. Like, okay, the solenoids are working. The flippers are pretty flippy. Let's go ahead and see if all these solenoids are firing. Oh, no kicker there. I think that's all of it. As soon as the ball kicks out, the last run kicked out the beginning of the game. So I think all the solenoids are working. The last thing issue we had here was this digit here is not working. These are some of those Wolfpack displays, or they sell them as a kit. I don't think you can buy them made, but they're, if you like soldering a little bit or want to learn how to solder better, they're kind of a pretty good kit to do. I've built several of them myself. I didn't make these, but that digit's out. So I'm going to start by I'm going to take this ribbon cable. I'm just going to reverse it because it might be as simple as it's this ribbon cable might be bad. Okay, now we're in game mode. Well, now we're missing that digit and that digit. And some over here. Yeah. So, let me try a different cable. Same. Might have been that one was out all the time. And so, I don't remember those being out. Maybe I'll go back to look at the video. No, I don't guess it's a ribbon cable problem. Swap this one around. Yeah, same. So we're missing that segment and that bottom left one That bottom left one is missing from player 3 and 4 on the, yeah, all the digits. So, yeah, okay, 3 and 4 in the master, those, they all share, yeah, I remember that. So that's probably either a bad chip or a bad solder joint on this board. We can. So I think the problem that the displays are having is some of these solder joints are not really fully made. Like that one right there, see the gap, and that one's probably actually connected because the traces on this side of the board. But some of these traces, you know, like all those right there, you flip it over, and so you get some of the traces are emanating from the other side of the board. So you've got to get the solder to flow through the via and get to the trace on the other side. So you got to not just see the solder on this side, you've got to actually kind of put it on there and watch. You'll see it go, it'll suck down through there, and then you know you've got it. So I think problem may be is some of these are just didn't have quite enough solder. So I'm just going to go through real quick and resolder this board real quick. There's a bunch of them. I wish I could just go through and get the ones that look bad, but I don't. It's hard to know which ones are not going through. So I'm just going to hit them all real, well, kind of fast. So I reflowed the solder on all these, and I have to say, they still don't look great. They've got this gray hue. And that's after reflowing, and that gray hue was already there. I put just a dab more solder, and I use 60-40 solder. So it's, what, it's 40% lead or 60% lead? 40% lead. They make, I'm wondering if this is leadless solder, and that's why it leaves that gray hue. I know that some people use it because of the health effects of lead. You know, it's not good to breathe, but it doesn't work as well. It's harder to use. So I don't know. I just haven't experienced that. I've seen old, you know, 40-year-old solder that looks like this, but this is obviously pretty new. So I don't know, but I'm gonna throw it in the game and see where we're at. Well, so that fixed some of the problems. We've got this little segment back on these, and that strobing is just the frame rate of the, but this is still all messed up. Maybe I'll pull this one off, and maybe it's the solder joints in the back of this match display. Oh, that one there's a pin. It's not soldered at all. And that one's not real well. For sure, that one is not. It's completely not soldered. That could be the one missing deal. So I'm gonna go ahead and some of these, like that one right there, it's not, it's probably making contact, but I'm just gonna hit these real quick and we'll throw it back in. All right, so I got that display resoldered, throw it back in, and oh, so now we got some different issues. Now we got a double where it's too bright. That's weird. And that digit's missing completely. Let me go check. So I took this back to the bench. I sucked all that one digit wasn't working. I sucked all the old solder off. You can see this and replaced it with new solder, the 60-40 that I know is 60-40. And see how it's nice and shiny versus the old stuff is gray. You can tell this stuff is not really sticking to the metal as well because it's got that concave bulbous shape. It ought to be, or convex. It ought to be concave, you know, up to the wire because it's really wanting to attach to the wire. This is kind of, I don't really want to attach the wire so much. So anyway, I just put it in the machine and pulled it back out again, and it's working now. So I think, I don't know. I think it's some kind of weird solder. Maybe it's lead-free or low lead solder or something. And it just, and there was, in some of them, like that pin there, wasn't soldered at all. But even after I resoldered that one, this digit still wasn't working. And I had reflowed it all. So I just cleaning all that solder off, put it in fresh 60-40 solder for what, I don't know. It cleaned it, fixed the problem. I also got rid of all the flux on here. In the past, seems like I remember that these boards are extremely sensitive to any kind of residual flux. Like any continuity at all between the terminals can cause you some glitchy problems. So
clean them off with some alcohol and a toothbrush. Okay, so we've got all the digits. It's strobing, but they're all there. So I think this is a good stopping place for this video. So click the like button if you like it, and click subscribe if you want to see more of it. Cheers.